Hi there, my name's Luke. Welcome to Kickstarter coverage here on Press.Start Network. I'll be your guide through the different interviews that we have with game developers who are using Kickstarter to help launch their titles. Today we're taking a look at Insurgency 2, which is a realistic first-person shooter developed by New World Interactive based out of Denver, Colorado. I talked with Jeremy Blum, the founder of New World Interactive, and he and a small team of mod enthusiasts created the first Insurgency nearly 5 years ago. It was a realistic, fast-paced shooter and was a total conversion from Half-Life 2. Here's Jeremy talking a little bit about the process that went into creating the first Insurgency.
We pretty much took the game, took Half-Life 2 and replaced everything. We redid all of the gameplay, all the weapons, the way they behave. All the environments were completely redone from scratch, pretty much. There were about 20 of us at one point. Always a small core team, of about, 8 or so of us. But it took a while. It took like 3 years.
Because the realistic combat was such a defining point of the first Insurgency, I asked Jeremy if he could explain the feel of the game and also what Insurgency 2 would maintain in terms of realism.
Insurgency was always very different first-person shooter experience compared to similar games, especially games that were source-based. We basically spent a lot of time making something that felt very real and was almost overly intense and scary to play. And a lot of people liked that. But with the new version, we're really trying to keep a lot of the intensity, but make it a little bit more accessible and a little bit less frustrating to play. In terms of our gameplay, it just doesn't feel like a realism game in the sense that it's sluggish or frustrating. Most realism games you play, you have to wander across, a mile of territory or something. Our game isn't really like that. It retains sort of a very focused, quick action sort of element to it, while still retaining a very strong realism fundamental core gameplay. We definitely have a bunch of tactical options in the game, such as leaning, prone, changing your rate of fire and the weapons. These things add, sort of a tactical level of the game. But with the weapons, it's about the free aim area, being able to aim independently of where you're looking. And when you fire at things, the responsiveness that you get, when you hit somebody, the way that you get dropped when you get shot, sort of scares you from going out in the open, because that if you just run out in the open, you're going to get shot. That's sort of what we're going for here is sort of a smaller scale, realistic experience.
One of the things that I noticed when watching the gameplay was the dynamics of the scope.
Yeah, we have a 3D scope. Everything inside the optics themselves zoom in, and everything outside of the optics still remains zoomed out. And a lot of games will just zoom in the whole screen, and that's actually the most common thing. So, that's definitely something that is really cool about our game, and it was actually the first Insurgency also.
After explaining the realism of the overall game, Jeremy went on to talk about what the team is working on to make sure Insurgency 2 is the best that it can be.
I think the main difference, or you can call it addition to the game, or you can call it just a change in philosophy, whatever you want to call it, is our more focused level design. We really made this game a lot more focused so that you interact with players more frequently. One of the bigger problems with Insurgency was that, especially on smaller servers, people would be running around the maps looking for the enemy and unable to find them, and then you just get shot out of nowhere. You wouldn't know where you got shot from, and it was a little bit frustrating.
With the level design in question, I also talked with Spencer Rose, one of the developers. He shared what the team's process is for creating maps and gameplay that matches the overall development goals.
They're focused. They're not sprawling, as Jeremy said, like an Arma or Battlefield map. If you're expecting a free world, open roaming game, it's not like that. It's still very much rooted in the fundamentals of level design and funneling players where they need to go. The result with such a tactical game is it's kind of refreshing. It's fun. You get right back in the action right away, so you're not running miles and miles in the combat. And it eliminates some of those frustrations of the hardcore realism game. It's kind of a complicated question, but when you look at it, it's really simple. You play the game, and did you have fun or not? The formula to make that is a little more difficult, though, because, it's a lot of trial and error. It's like playing with Legos. You piece a lot of different Legos together in the form of a map, and then you see if it works or not. If it doesn't, you tear it all apart and do it again.
Jeremy then talked about the background of the original mod team, and also about how the idea for Insurgency 2 came about.
all of us at our core are modders. We all started out in the modding community, self-taught. It started out as a passion, as a hobby. I've always wanted to work on Insurgency. Again, taking it further, more in the direction that I've always wanted to take it from the beginning. This iteration of Insurgency sort of came about, I would say, about a year-ish ago, when James Mansfield, the original lead programmer from Insurgency, who wrote most of the code for Beta 1, approached me and expressed interest in working on Insurgency 2. And when I realized that, hey, this is something that I want to do, and also now I have the original lead programmer who wrote most of the code who wants to do it as well, that's the point in time when I realized that this thing was a reality.
Lastly, I asked Jeremy to share his thoughts on the Kickstarter campaign.
Raising money for a game isn't that easy. You're dealing with publishers. You're dealing with publishers, and you're dealing with investors that don't know much about games. And it's really hard to sell those kind of investors on games. And when you are talking to publishers and you have publishers that are interested in what you're doing, there's a lot that they ask for. And it's after talking to a few of these publishers and realizing that there is a demand for this kind of game. Ultimately, Kickstarter, crowdfunding is the most pure form of creative support. We wouldn't owe anybody anything. It's our fans that would be truly supporting this thing instead of a financer or a publisher or something like that. It really would be ideal to make games that way. And hopefully Kickstarter will become sort of a way for game developers like us to actually achieve this. And we're going to offer the team elimination that you see in Counter-Strike. We're going to offer a really cool new convoy escort/ambush based game mode that we're prototyping right now that we really think could potentially become a selling point of this game. We're pretty excited about where we're at, and we just want to keep adding to it. And I really feel that once this thing is done, it's going to have a lot of really cool stuff in it.
That's it for this episode's coverage. If you want to learn more about Insurgency 2 or see how you can help fund the project, make sure you check out their Kickstarter page. The link's going to be in the description. A big thanks to both Jeremy and Spencer for taking the time to speak with us. Also, if you want even more gaming news, make sure you stay here and subscribe to Press.Start Network. And with that, we'll see you guys next time.